Before we begin, there's something I'd like to address. It's a bit of an elephant in the room, just between you and me. Yes, I know that it has been quite some time since I've been here speaking to you all. I haven't posted a new video here, especially one like this, in nearly 2 years. That wasn't exactly intentional, at least not at first. It started as a forced hiatus, then I decided I didn't want to come back, and then I did. And I came to realize that even if I did get my channel back in full, doing this full time again just isn't the right thing for me based on the content that I like to make. So I decided that I'll make the content that I want and that I find fun, free of that sort of pressure. Now, there will be a video coming later that will explain more of why I left, why I changed my mind so many times, what we're going to do now, and where the channel is headed, but that's not what we're here to discuss today. Today, I'd like to discuss something that's a little tricky to actually talk about in today's climate, but it's something that matters a lot to me, both as a creative and as a consumer of popular culture. Something that I have to speak about, if for nothing more than my own peace of mind. That is this quote-unquote culture war that we seem to find ourselves steeped in. It seems as though every single day a new movie or show or game gets announced, and if it stars someone of a certain demographic, then there's a certain group of people here on the internet that don't know what to do other than drop trowel and shit on the floor. There are those that seem to believe that they are under attack and that war is being waged on them for no other reason than for existing in the specific way that they do. Or maybe they don't believe it, but they really want you to believe it. I think that's enough beating around the bush, though. I'm talking about people like Nerdtronic, The Quartering, Geeks and Gamers, The Critical Drinker, and World-Class Bullshitters. The list goes on, but that last one in particular is gonna come into play soon. That's right, folks, we're talking about media grifters. Simply put, these are people whose primary goal is to build an audience and to make a profit regardless of personal or journalistic integrity. They have found that the best and easiest way to do that is by exploiting this new wave of alt-right rage that's flared up in recent years. They'll tell you that Barbie is a 2-hour misandrist hit piece and that Warner Brothers hates you for being a white male. They'll tell you that video games are only made to appeal to LGBT black gamers now. They'll tell you that art and politics should never cross under any circumstances, while also praising the Dune films because the main guy is white and male, because they don't actually know what they're talking about. They just want you to think that they do. They target a specific demographic, being young males, particularly teenagers, those who are especially vulnerable and impressionable, and they drill this rhetoric into their heads. This is dangerous for those who are lonely, or find it hard to develop a romantic life, or are otherwise primed to grow into hateful, spiteful people. What it does is it gives them a reason to deflect accountability. These people can't possibly have any character flaws or any work to do on themselves. No. It simply must be that everyone else is wrong. It's the movies and video games that are making everyone else not like them. And that ideology grows and spreads like a virus, and you end up with what you see on Twitter, or X, or Twix. It's been a week since the Game Awards at the time that I wrote this all down. It took a little while to actually get around to recording it, but I still can't go on there for 5 minutes without seeing people freak out about The Witcher 4, or Intergalactic, or games that weren't even shown, like Assassin's Creed Shadows. The important thing here isn't whether these particular creators believe what they say. They might or might not, and that part can't exactly be helped. What can be helped is the steady and deliberate choice to spew this venom out into the world. For instance, I could point out the hypocrisy in hating a movie like Prey, finding it unrealistic that a woman could take down a predator alien, while at the same time defaulting to Sarah Connor for a perfectly represented and realistically written strong female lead when she's shown to overpower men twice her size through little more than plot convenience. But there's an expertly crafted video by the Birdman that I will link down below. He's slightly better at this whole thing than I am, just a little bit, but I still have a lot to say. Simple fact is that if Ridley Scott's Alien or Terminator 2 came out now, you'd see the exact same videos that you saw about the Marvels or about Black Widow, claiming that Hollywood has gone woke and hates straight white guys. And at the end of it all, that's what it comes down to. Everything is woke. Movies don't have strong white male leads anymore. They point to films such as The Creator or Furiosa to prove their point, while ignoring Top Gun Maverick, Mission Impossible, Avatar, No Time to Die, Free Guy, Spider-Man, Gladiator 2, Dunes Part 1 and 2, Roadhouse, Deadpool, Venom, The Batman, John Wick, Dungeons & Dragons, Guardians of the Galaxy, Bullet Train, Doctor Strange, Uncharted, and so on. All successful films or film franchises starring a straight white guy. But for some reason they forget about them. Or they'll use the term go woke, go broke to assert that anything not starring a straight white guy is doomed to fail critically and financially, while ignoring movies like Alien Romulus, Nope, Black Panther 2, Ghostbusters Afterlife, Barbie, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Shang-Chi, the Spider-Verse movies, Creed, and so on. Movies that were also successful despite starring black leads, female leads, Asian leads, and sometimes a combination of some of those things. What gives fuel to these baseless, easily debunkable claims is when a film like Madame Web, or Wonder Woman 1984, or The Marvels comes out and predictably flops at the box office. Each of these could be explained quite simply and reasonably, but these people leap at their go woke, go broke narrative as if it's an unbreakable rule. For instance, Madame Web flopped due to low interest in the character, confusing marketing, and previous damage to the audience trust in this Sony Marvel universe after announcing and canceling so many movies, and their mishandling of Spider-Man in the past. Wonder Woman 84 flopped for the same reason as Tenet. People just weren't ready to come back to the theater yet, even during Christmas. We were still neck deep in the pandemic, and not even the rising star that is Pedro Pascal could change people's minds. Then you have The Marvels, which released shortly after a historic actors and writers strike, during which time many actors were not allowed to or chose not to do press for or promote their upcoming films. Many studios chose to delay their movies because of this, which is why Dune Part 2 released in March of 2024 and not November of 2023. Disney did not do this with The Marvels, and they paid for it. Just think about it for a second. How could Ant-Man 3 and Guardians of the Galaxy 3 be box office successes and The Marvels be a failure if they released in that exact same year? Something had to change in between the release of those films, right? Something? It's also convenient that this little golden rule of theirs allows them to just gloss over movies like Shazam! Fury of the Gods, The Flash, Morbius, Kraven the Hunter, Indiana Jones 5, Lightyear, Doolittle, The Last Duel, The Fall Guy, and so many more movies starring straight white guys that hit theaters and just died on arrival. Let me ask you something. How many videos did you see before the release of Wicked saying it was doomed to fail or something along that line? And now that it's been a huge box office hit and both critics and audiences seem to greatly enjoy it, where did all those guys go? See, what I'm trying to communicate to you is that they don't even care about what they're saying. They just have to sell the image that they do. They sell outrage, and that's how they make their living. This goes beyond just what comes out in theaters. It extends in all directions. Just recently, when the Tomb Raider anime landed on Netflix, and Twitter couldn't talk about anything other than how unattractive they found Lara in the show because she's muscular. So someone that climbs walls, runs from crumbling temples, fights through hordes of goons, and has people trying to kill her on a weekly basis is in good physical shape. Yeah, I don't really understand that either. It says something to me as well that these people act like they need to be attracted to the protagonist of whatever it is they're watching, while at the same time begging for more straight white guys to look at. It means something, right? Beyond that, like I mentioned earlier, they freak out about video games as well. Take Assassin's Creed Shadows, for example. Gamers have wanted an Assassin's Creed game set in feudal Japan for over a decade now, and as soon as we get one, you play as an African man and a Japanese woman rather than as a Japanese man. These people look at that to mean Ubisoft is trying to erase male samurai or something, acting as though they don't have any other options as far as what they could play if they aren't interested in this particular game. There's still Ghost of Tsushima, Rise of the Ronin, Sekiro, Wolong Fallen Dynasty, Trek to Yomi, Blind Fate, and the upcoming Phantom Blade Zero title, and the new Onimusha. They also said this about Ghost of Yotai, which stars a female Ronin, which is not a samurai, but I don't really have the energy to get into that particular debate right now. I would also like to briefly mention that the Neo games star a white samurai, but nobody has anything to say about that being inappropriate for the era, for some reason. Couldn't tell you why. Furthermore, people are up in arms about Ciri being the protagonist of the new Witcher title, as if that wasn't the entire point of the franchise to this point. I didn't even finish Wild Hunt, and I know that. They see a few games, like The Last of Us Part 2, Horizon Forbidden West, and the upcoming Grand Theft Auto 6 and Hades 2, and they default to the war being waged on male. Let's just ignore Spider-Man, Final Fantasy, God of War, Resident Evil 8, Deathloop, Devil May Cry, Prince of Persia, and whatever else would disprove them. Besides that, where was this outrage for Mirror's Edge, or Bayonetta, or Perfect Dark, or Resident Evils 1, 2, and 3, or the old Tomb Raider games, or Nier Automata, or Stellar Blade? Oh, yeah, because those women are quote-unquote conventionally attractive. These guys, yeah. I don't really see what relevance that has to the gameplay experience, but go off, I guess. You know, and I still don't know what Stellar Blade is about, despite it being out for like a year, and dude bros on Twitter comparing it to every other game with the female lead almost every single day. So I wonder if those guys know. I mean, they had to have played the game, right? All of this is to say that media literacy and media discourse has maybe never been in a worse place than where it is right now. Radicalization on either side of the fence has been damaging beyond recognition. We're at a place where if you like something, you've been got by the woke mind virus, and if you don't like it, you're just an alt-right incel. We don't judge on merits anymore, just based on buzzwords and political ideation. It's exhausting no matter who's spewing it. One side is blatantly more harmful and dangerous than the other, though, and that's the problem that I'd like to highlight today. I write stories that don't always center on a white guy. I even have female protagonists in my stories sometimes. I want people to judge my work based on my writing ability. When you're reading Atlas Chronicles Cops and Robbers, analyze my dialogue, plot structure, pacing, character development, writing prose, and narrative elements. Don't just start freaking out when you realize that Nico Harper's a black guy and just drop the book. Another reason that this matters so much to me is because I used to be like this, at least in some way. It all started after I watched Star Wars The Last Jedi. I had always been able to think critically and analytically about the things I read, watched, or played, but there was something about The Last Jedi that I couldn't describe. Much like many of you out there, I didn't like it very much. I still don't, but things have changed. I remember sitting in the theater, being the only one not laughing at any of the jokes. I remember feeling anger when Luke died rather than sadness like when it happened to Han. It was a new feeling for me, and on the way home, realizing that I really, truly did not like it, I had to figure out why. So I went to YouTube to see what everyone else thought. And I found videos by Mahler, Dishonored Wolf, World Class Bullshitters, and I can't even remember how many others, talking about things like emasculating Finn and Poe, and bastardizing Luke's character, and so on and so forth. So much of it went beyond the film itself and started peeking into the culture war, and that I didn't even know that was what was happening. But it was the only explanation that I could find for why I didn't like the movie, so I went with it. And to this day, if you go back to my earliest videos, I talk about The Last Jedi and Incredibles 2 and a few other movies through this exact same lens. I defaulted back to Sarah Connor and Ellen Ripley just like these guys do now, just to seem like I wasn't anti-woman. I'm embarrassed, but I leave those videos there to represent the growth that I've had since I started taking this more seriously. There are perfectly valid reasons not to like The Last Jedi or any other thing that gets made. Nothing is perfect. Something might not resonate with you like it did for everyone else, and that's perfectly fine. What's not fine is harassing actors like Daisy Ridley and Kelly Marie Tran. What's not fine is building a platform around telling young men that they're under attack. I'm not even white, and I had slipped into the alt-right pipeline that would have eventually made me a white supremacist. I was so impressionable and vulnerable at that time that I had let these people convince me that this was all objectively bad, and anyone who liked the movie was a paid shill. They convinced me to dedicate my time and mental energy to giving a shit about what other people like in a movie that I didn't. I even made videos about that. I was quote-unquote calling out shills and exposing the truth in Hollywood. It's pretty damn pathetic when you look back at it. If you were to ask me what it was that changed my mind or saved me from spiraling further down this rabbit hole, the honest answer, surprisingly enough, is that I simply grew up. I had female friends and relatives that I loved dearly, and I had to come to a realization that they could see everything I was saying. They had a direct looking glass into my head, and I became ashamed of the things that I was saying. I also came to see that people like Birdman, who I mentioned earlier, or Jeremy Jahns, or other creators that I had been watching for years, and that had inspired me in my own content creation, and I had agreed with almost everything that they said, weren't really backing me up on this. And the guys that I had gotten this from had either faded into irrelevancy or moved on to other things. I eventually was left on my own, screaming and fuming about nothing. And the last piece for me was understanding that even if I at one point agreed with these people, they didn't care about me at all. Even if I was on their side, they weren't on mine. That became very clear to me during the summer of 2020 when my people, when my community were crying out for help, trying to claim justice in a world that refused it for so long. And I saw so many people vilify my brothers and sisters, calling us animals, savages, thugs, criminals, whatever else, only for that same group of people to try and overturn an election just a couple of months later. The hypocrisy should be a wake-up call for anyone. I'm embarrassed at how long it took for me, but I'm glad that I got there in the end anyway. When it's all said and done, the point of this video isn't to be a hit piece. I'm not trying to directly call anyone out. Though I could definitely, if you wanted me to, I could absolutely rip that ranting for vengeance kid a new one, but I'd rather try to appeal to his humanity. He's just a kid, and he's already so full to the brim with this hateful, spiteful rhetoric. And that's the very thing that I'm talking about here. That's what's really at risk. You have kids consuming this content, having this ideology drilled into them, and it's only going to get worse as they get older. The more hate you fill a person with, the worse things they'll do. I don't want to see the end of that road if I can help it. This video is meant to caution you. I want you, especially if you're someone that watches these channels, to understand that these people don't speak for you. I want you to know that they count on people like you watching them and being radicalized by their words and actions so that you can keep money in their pockets. They don't actually care, and they may not even believe what they're telling you. So just be careful. I hope that you're now able to identify this type of content when you see it, what its purpose is, and the potential dangers behind it. All that being said, play what you want to play, watch what you want to watch, read what you want to read, love who you want to love, and live how you want to live. And as long as the person next to you isn't hurting anyone, learn to mind your own damn business. I've been Toxie. Glad to be back, and I'll see you next time. Peace.